Seriously, think about it for a moment. Imagine setting sail at sunset, the sun dipping below the horizon like a fiery coin, leaving you with nothing but the vast, open ocean. No map to consult, no compass needle to guide you, not even a phone to call for help. Just the creak of wood, the whisper of the wind, and the endless expanse of water. And yet, for more than 2,000 years, Polynesian fishermen did exactly that. They pushed off from familiar shores, steering their magnificent canoes into the planet's largest ocean, and somehow, against all odds, found specks of land so small that on most globes, they're barely more than a dot. How on earth did they pull off such an astonishing feat? What hidden cues, what secret language of the sea, allowed them to cross distances larger than the entire continental United States and hit targets the size of a small neighborhood, time and time again? Today, we're diving headfirst into the lost science of Polynesian wayfinding, the ancient, almost mystical art of reading stars, feeling the subtle pulse of ocean swells, interpreting the flight of birds, and even tasting the sea to voyage thousands of kilometers without a single modern tool. By the end of this, you'll understand why these oceanic detectives could sail circles around most captains today, armed only with memory, nerve, and a profound, intimate conversation with nature that most of us have completely forgotten how to even begin. Let's start with the most glaring, terrifying problem. The Pacific Ocean isn't just big, it covers a staggering 1/3 of Earth's entire surface. Between the scattered island chains, you can easily sail for weeks on end and see absolutely nothing but the unbroken blue horizon. We're talking about an area so immense that making even a 1-degree course error over a 3-week journey means you'll miss your target island by more than 100 kilometers. Think about that for a second. The stakes weren't just high, they were existential. Get it right, and you're feasting on fresh coconuts with your family, telling tales of the journey. Get it wrong, and you drift forever, a silent ghost on an endless sea. That kind of pressure didn't just encourage precision. It forged a navigation system so incredibly accurate, so deeply ingrained, that modern replicas, like the legendary canoe Hokulea, have duplicated ancient routes within a few miles, using nothing but period-appropriate tools and techniques. It's not just impressive, it's almost unbelievable. So, what was their first, indispensable tool? The sky, of course. Polynesian navigators didn't just glance at the stars. They memorized hundreds of them, along with their exact rising and setting points on the horizon. Imagine your entire night sky as a gigantic, living clock face, or perhaps a pizza, sliced into 32 precise, even wedges. Each one of these wedges wasn't just a direction. It was a house. A specific, recognizable star would always rise at the edge of one particular house, and, without fail, set at the opposite edge. By knowing which star sat in which house on any given month, a skilled steersman could maintain a steady heading simply by keeping the canoe pointed at, say, the third brightest star from the bow. When that star climbed too high in the sky, he'd seamlessly switch to the next star in the sequence, chaining constellations across the celestial dome like a series of cosmic stepping stones. During the day, when the stars were hidden, the rising and setting sun provided a reliable east and west. Then, as twilight painted the sky, the first faint stars would appear, allowing the navigator to confirm the canoe's bearing before full darkness enveloped them. This wasn't just rote memorization. It was an entire cosmology, a living map etched into the mind. Over centuries, navigators built internal catalogs of more than 150 stars, though for routine trips, they'd trim the list to a more manageable 30 or 40, focusing on the most reliable ones. The result? A mental star compass that was, in many ways, more accurate and certainly more adaptable than many of the metal compasses carried by European sailors centuries later. They even accounted for changes in latitude, understanding how the paths of stars shifted as they moved north or south of the equator, a subtle but crucial detail for long-distance voyages. But what happens when the stars play hide-and-seek behind a blanket of clouds? That's where their second, equally brilliant tool came into play: the ocean itself. The open Pacific is rarely still. It's a dynamic, ever-changing tapestry of several swell systems, each generated by distant storms or prevailing winds. A truly trained navigator, sitting cross-legged near the stern of the canoe, could feel up to 5 separate swells under the hull simultaneously. Think about that level of sensory input. There might be long, slow, powerful waves rolling in from the distant Southern Ocean, shorter, choppier swells from the northeast trade winds, and perhaps even others created by faraway cyclones, or the unique reflections off unseen islands. The navigator detected the dominant swell direction through his hips, his body acting as a finely tuned instrument, much like how you can feel the deep bass notes of music vibrating through the floor. When the canoe's motion subtly changed, perhaps the roll shortened or the pitch quickened, he knew an island was altering the wave pattern. Islands don't just sit there, they interact with the ocean. They block incoming swells on their windward side and refract them around their flanks, creating unique zones of confused water or distinct wave patterns. By mapping these invisible bumps and shifts in the ocean's surface, navigators could tell that land lay over the horizon, even when no visual clue existed. It's like hearing two heartbeats and instinctively knowing exactly where you stand between them, even in pitch darkness. This wasn't just observing the ocean, it was feeling its pulse, its very breath, through the timbers of their canoe and their own bodies. Wind offered a third crucial layer to this incredible navigational puzzle. Seasonal trade winds blow from predictable quarters, northeast in the northern summer, southeast in the southern. Navigators didn't fight these rhythms. They used them like established highway lanes. If their destination lay upwind, they wouldn't just sail directly into it. Instead, they'd first sail higher than necessary, beating into the breeze to gain latitude, then turn and run directly downwind to the island. This clever tactic, known as downwind sailing, conserved energy and made for a much smoother, faster journey. They also watched for sudden, subtle shifts in the wind. A wind that backed counterclockwise might herald the approach of a storm center. A freshening breeze that swung sharply to the east could signal the arrival of a high-pressure ridge. None of this intricate knowledge was ever written down in books or charts. Instead, it was sung. Chants encoded wind patterns, star houses, even the number of paddling strokes between reefs, preserving encyclopedias of vital data in rhythmic lyrics, passed down from uncle to nephew, from master to apprentice, across generations. It was a living, breathing database, carried in the minds and voices of the people. What was the next clue in their environmental toolkit? Birds, without a doubt. Terns, noddies, and tropic birds all have one thing in common. They sleep on land. So, at dawn, they stream out to sea to feed. And by late afternoon, they stream back home. A navigator watching a turn circle and then head off purposefully at 4 in the afternoon knew, with uncanny certainty, that an island lay somewhere along that flight line within roughly 40 kilometers. Boobies, being stronger flyers, travel further, but even they stay within an 80-kilometer radius of their home island. Spotting one of these feathered guides meant land was probably just a day's sail away. It's like having a living, breathing compass needle pointing directly to your destination. Clouds help too, in ways we might not immediately consider. Warm land heats the air above it, creating rising columns of air that condense into small, fluffy cumulus clouds, while the surrounding oceanic sky remains clear and unbroken. From a distance, a lone, puffy cloud, stubbornly clinging to the horizon, often marked an island's location like a neon sign, invisible to the untrained eye, but screaming, "Land," to the knowledgeable navigator. Combine that with subtle changes in water color. Shallow reef water reflects a distinctive turquoise hue into the sky, creating a telltale glow. And a navigator had a multi-sensory radar made of birds, clouds, and color gradients. These weren't just random observations. They were pieces of a grand, interconnected puzzle. All of these signs, these countless environmental data points, funneled into an intricate mental map, kept alive and vibrant by a rigorous oral tradition. Before embarking on voyages, apprentices wouldn't just study, they'd recite complex sequences. House of Kealoha rises, steer until hull lifts on the third swell, count 4 nights until the white bird turns back. These recitations were rhythmic, almost rap-like, designed not just for memorization, but for perfect recall, ensuring nothing, not a single crucial detail, was forgotten. The master navigator didn't lecture from a textbook. He quizzed. Star for January? House number? Bird at sunset? Wrong answers didn't just mean a bad grade. They meant more time sanding hulls or weaving sails. A practical consequence that hammered the knowledge home until it stuck, deep, and unshakable. Thus, each generation carried a kind of biological GPS chip in its collective memory, constantly updated and refined. This wasn't classroom learning. This was survival knowledge, hammered into memory through repetition and immediate life or death stakes. Let's just pause for a second here, because by now you might be thinking, cool story, sounds amazing. But did it actually work? Like, really work? That's a perfectly fair question. And that's where the modern revival enters the scene. By the 1970 seconds, the pure, unadulterated art of Polynesian wayfinding had nearly vanished, a victim of colonial influence and modern technology. Then, a visionary group of Hawaiian activists decided to build a replica double-hulled voyaging canoe, a magnificent vessel they named Hokulea. They knew they needed a true master. So they recruited Mau Piailug, a legendary navigator from Satawal, a tiny island in Micronesia where the ancient art had miraculously survived. In 1976, Mau Piailug stepped aboard Hokulea, and using only traditional methods, no instruments, no charts, nothing modern, sailed from Hawaii to Tahiti, a staggering 2,500 nautical miles. He arrived within 30 miles of his target, a margin of error smaller than many GPS-assisted yachts allow for drift. It was a breathtaking, undeniable validation. Since then, Hokulea has completed dozens of Pacific legs, training a new generation of navigators and proving, beyond a shadow of a doubt, the efficacy of these ancient techniques. In 2014, she even circumnavigated the globe, becoming the first Polynesian vessel to do so entirely unaided by modern instruments. These voyages aren't just incredible adventures. They prove that this system isn't a myth or folklore. It's a technology so sophisticated, so deeply rooted in observation and understanding, that even NASA engineers have studied its ingenious error correction logic. It wasn't just a boat. It was a living testament, a bridge across time, proving that this ancient wisdom wasn't folklore, but cutting-edge science. So, let's pull all these incredible threads together and imagine a typical voyage. Our navigator leaves Samoa at dusk, the scent of plumeria still lingering in the air. He aims the bow of his canoe toward the bright star Shaula as it rises in House 12. Through the long night, he swaps stars every hour or so, seamlessly adjusting for the canoe's slight leeway in the current. By dawn, clouds roll in, hiding the sky. No problem. He switches to the ocean swells. The dominant roll now comes from the south-southeast, a subtle message telling him a low-pressure system is north, and he should bear slightly to starboard. At midday, a flash of white catches his eye, a white tern flying southwest. He angles the canoe to follow, knowing land lies within 40 kilometers in that direction. Late afternoon, and the horizon begins to change. Wisps of clouds stack over the distant line, and the water below turns a telltale jade green. He reduces sail, eyes scanning for the telltale white line of reef breaks. As the sun dips below the horizon, he makes landfall on an atoll he has never seen before. Yet he finds the pass on the first try because the outgoing current kicks up a standing wave, a specific pattern he was taught to expect, an invisible signal in the water. No map, no metal, no paper. Just a chain of observations, a symphony of senses, memorized and practiced since childhood. What profound lessons can we take from this incredible saga of human ingenuity? First, precision doesn't require expensive gadgets or glowing screens. It requires incredibly sharp feedback loops. These navigators constantly cross-checked star against swell, bird against cloud, memory against raw reality. They were perpetual learners, constantly refining their internal models. Second, knowledge survives best, not when it's merely stored in dusty archives, but when it's sung, chanted, lived, and breathed. It becomes part of the cultural fabric, resilient and unforgettable. And third, perhaps most powerfully, technology isn't only what we invent and build with our hands, it's also what we notice. Our ancestors listened when the ocean spoke, when the stars whispered, when the birds pointed the way. And you know what? We can too. We just have to remember how. If this kind of story, this testament to human potential, truly fascinates you, then do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe button. We've got more lost sciences and incredible human achievements coming your way. Share this with a friend who still gets lost, even with GPS yelling directions at them. And definitely drop a comment telling me which ancient skill you wish would make a comeback. To wrap it all up, Polynesian fishermen discovered remote islands by transforming the entire Pacific Ocean into a living, breathing instrument. They read the night sky like a clock, felt the sea like braille, watched birds like radar, and stored it all in songs sharper and more resilient than any hard drive. The next time you stand on a beach, looking out at that seemingly empty horizon, remember this: That expanse once pulsed with magnificent canoes, steered by grandmasters who saw the invisible, heard the silent, and felt the unfelt. Their legacy isn't just the countless islands they found and settled across the vast Pacific. It's a powerful reminder that human perception, when trained and tuned with dedication and respect, can still outperform the shiniest, most advanced gadget in your pocket. So, before you dismiss ancient know-how as primitive, remember, these oceanic detectives cracked a puzzle many of us couldn't solve, even with a satellite whispering directly in our ear.